fighting for us.
Yes.
He's fighting for you. You know, he had a chance to perform in front of millions of people across the world and the United States. He chose to make East Tennessee his home over 20 years ago. And he not only has served on the East Tennessee Children's Hospital Board, Advisory Council, and Board of Hall Powell Boys and Girls Club, he's also has an amazing small business, Jacobs Insurance Associates, that became a local champion of the kindness revolution, right? He's a revolutionary in multiple ways, which is also a national anti-bullying initiative. In 2008, y'all, he became the mayor of Knox County after winning by only 23 votes. 23 votes, right? Every person counts. Mayor Jacobs' goal for his administration includes keeping taxes low, finding efficiencies in government, supporting education, and of course, encouraging diversity. And true diversity, where everybody's included. You guys, please give a very warm YAL welcome to Glenn Kane Jacobs!
Today with all of you. Before I begin, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends at U.S. Term Limits. I was recently named the Term Limits Chairman for the state of Tennessee. That's a big honor for me. So they had a booth here earlier, but please reach out to them. It's a great organization. You all know I love you, right? You all know how much I love you? I love you so much that I would subject myself to commercial air travel to get here. Because nowadays, traveling by airplane is a special kind of hell for libertarians. Now y'all, probably a lot of you don't remember pre-9/11, right? A lot of you probably a little too young. So you go to the airport, you didn't have to show an ID or anything. You did have to go through a metal detector, but you know, it was pretty laid back. Well then, 9/11 happened, and of course that changed everything. And this organization called the TSA came into being. And kind of what reminds me of what's happening today. You know, after 9/11, all this stuff's happening. There's all this confusion and all these different things are happening, and experts are giving their opinion and speculating on TV. Yeah, at some point, they had some sort of, it was some sort of incident where they thought people were mixing chemicals in the bathroom of an airplane, an airliner, to create a bomb. So that's when they said you couldn't bring water onto a plane anymore, even though the actual people who are experts, chemists, said you would have to have advanced knowledge of chemistry, lots of material, plenty of time in a bathroom to assemble such a bomb, and you would probably kill yourself because of the noxious odor unless you wear a gas mask in the bathroom. So it's probably not going to happen. But because of that, we couldn't take water bottles on an airplane. When all that happened, I remember calling my wife. I was going to leave it to the government to outlaw water. But what got really interesting was when someone said, you know, we think that Islamic terrorists might be using breast implants to hide explosives in women. Yeah, that was something one said. So if they ban water getting on airplanes and they're worried about this, like, are they going to ban breasts from getting on airplanes? And it's, or it's just going to be a certain amount. Yeah, I mean, it was, yeah. But that's what we deal with. But that, I thought, you know, it can't get any worse than this, right? We have a saying in Tennessee, hold my beer and watch this. Because now, you get on the airplane and you gotta wear a mask. And the whole time, well, actually, I'm sorry, that's, back in 9/11, that's when they started with the speakers at the airport, much like in North Korea, just constant bombardment of announcements about your security. Well, now you get on an airplane and you hear, I get it, 100 times, keep your mask over your nose and mouth. It's a federal requirement. If you don't do that, it's a federal law. You could be kicked off the plane, denied re-entry, and face penalties under federal law. And I'm sitting there going, it's not a law, it's an executive order issued by a guy who is in rapid mental decline, but I guess I'm not him. But that's how much I love you guys, is that I would actually leave my home and get on an airplane and come here, okay? And it's also hard for me to leave my home, because I think it's the best place in the country to live. No offense to any of you that don't live in East Tennessee, but it really is. Yeah, thank you. I moved to East Tennessee in 1995, and the longer that I've lived there, the more I realize these are my people. It's a conservative area with a pretty strong libertarian streak. I'll tell you a couple points of information that'll win you a trivia game, but also is illustrative of East Tennessee. One is our state song, unofficially, is a song called Rocky Top. Now, any of you that follow college football know that that is played whenever the University of Tennessee scores a touchdown. Isn't been played as much lately as it was in years past, because we're not that good anymore. Getting better, but there's a stanza in Rocky Top, and it goes, once two strangers climbed old Rocky Top, looking for a moonshine still. Strangers ain't come down from Rocky Top, reckon they never will. Look it up to see what it actually means. The other point of information is East Tennessee, specifically McMinn County, is the site of the only successful armed rebellion in America since the Revolution. Woo! In the mid-1930s to the mid-1940s, McMinn County was the most corrupt place in the country. They had police brutality, intimidation, voter fraud, corruption, to the point where people were even murdered at the polls if they voted the wrong way. In 1946, of course, the war, World War II is ending, and the veterans were coming home. And they decided that we've been fighting for democracy overseas, and we've come back to a place which is actually a fascist dictatorship in McMinn County, Tennessee, and we gotta do something about that. So they put together the GI slate, which was a slate of veterans running for office. And went out and campaigned, did the whole deal. Then on election day, it was the same old stuff. You have armed deputies at the polling places. Gentleman came up, farmer, voted the wrong way. He got punched with brass knuckles, goes to run away, was shot in the back. It happens on election day. They started beating up the poll watchers for the GIs. Then, as they would do every year, as it was a custom, the sheriff grabbed all the ballot boxes and ran off to the jail to lock themselves inside, count the ballot boxes in secret, and then announce the winners. One of the GIs is a guy named Bill White. He's just an average dude, although he served in Okinawa and Guadalcanal and many places, combat veteran. And they said, boys, you know what's gonna happen. So if we want to change this, you know what we gotta do. So they went down to the armory, and they got weapons of war like M1 Garands and Colt 1911s, and I think they got some 50 cals and some dynamite, and they laid siege to the jail. Finally, the deputies gave up, came out, the GIs went in, got the ballot boxes, counted the ballots in public, and actually did a count, and they had won. And they actually replaced the government. Interesting fact too, the governor who was very corrupt, it was all run out of Memphis by this guy named Boss Crump. But the governor who was very corrupt at the time, they called him and said, hey, we need the National Guard because we have civil unrest. The governor called the National Guard, and the National Guard, when they found out what was happening and who was doing it, was like, no, we're good. We'll stay out, we're good. But that's East Tennessee. We're a place that has American values. The traditional American values of family, hard work, all those sort of things. We're a place that believes in the American dream. To me, the American dream is really simple. You have the freedom to create the life that you want out of interference, so long as you don't hurt anyone else. And overwhelmingly, that's what we believe in East Tennessee. And that's why I got into politics. It was because everywhere I looked, the American dream is under attack. And I wanted to do what I could to make sure that my kids and my grandkids had access to that. I'm a product of the American dream. If you guys know my story, I grew up on a farm in Missouri. My dad is a 21, everybody's cheering for their states. My dad is a 21-year military veteran. We didn't have a whole lot when I was growing up. My family wasn't politically connected. Mom and dad worked really hard, but that's just the way it was. Sometimes it felt like we were going to paycheck, and I didn't want that in my life. I wanted to be a professional athlete. That didn't work out for me because of a knee injury, but I stumbled on to this world of professional wrestling, and I've had the most amazing life. Something that I never thought would have been possible for someone like me. Someone who grew up where I did, someone that didn't have any special talents or any special gifts, because I had the freedom to take risks. I had the freedom to fail. And then I finally had the freedom to succeed. And that's something worth protecting. So when I got into politics, though, I figured, I actually won my election in 2018, and I figured I'm gonna do stuff like, fight against government spending and waste, keep taxes low, keep government out of my life as much as possible, out of everybody's life as much as possible. And everything is going along really well until about March of last year, when the coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic overtook the entire world. And when I look at overall themes from that, what stands out to me is really, from my perspective of being a local government official, is three things. The speed with which all of that happened. The fact that it is true, politicians and bureaucrats always have a need, it's visceral, to do something. Doesn't matter if it's good, doesn't matter if it's bad, doesn't matter if it's destructive, just to do something. And the third thing is that Frank Zappa was right. America is a nation of laws, poorly written and arbitrarily enforced. So I'm going to talk about those actually in a different order, but the first thing is the speed with which everything took place. I mean, y'all, if you think about it, 2 years ago, everything was normal, right? That was 2 years. It's a very, very short period of time. And we've gone from that to where we are now. It looked like things were getting better, and now who knows where we're going. In the winter of 2019, that's when I first heard about this coronavirus thing in China. I was like, oh man, that sounds bad. So I talked to our public health officials, and they're like, yes, could be a bad situation. We've dealt with things like this before, swine flu, the avian flu. It'll probably be with us for about 6 months. It's like, And the World Health Organization is coming under criticism for praising China for their response to coronavirus, which was to lock people in their homes. But I was told, we're not going to do that because we're not a communist country. But hold your applause. That was December 2019. March of 2020, we were locking people in their homes. That's how quickly all of this took place. In the initial days, I felt like I was in a boxing match, and it was like Floyd Mayweather against me, which wouldn't be a very good matchup for me, because I'm just getting hit from every direction all the time. You almost didn't have time to think. And I'm trying to push back, but it's just it's overwhelming. And the public is scared, everybody's frightened. And my message was, yes, this is a serious issue. And I've never thought that the whole thing was a hoax. I think coronavirus, COVID-19, I think it's dangerous. I understand all those things. But my message the whole time was, don't let the fear overwhelm us. And of course, the media's like, Jacob says, don't be afraid. We should all be scared to death. So that didn't work out really well for me. And it was just like the snowball, and things just kept on going and going. And I'm trying to hold my ground. And finally, I'm still holding my ground, but it's like I'm in an avalanche and I'm holding my ground here, and then the snow just goes all around me and just takes everything out anyway. The speed with which this has occurred is mind-boggling when you think about it. And that's been part of the issue, is we haven't been able, at least at the start, we're able to do that. But we weren't able to rally the troops to fortify our defenses like we needed to, and we just got overwhelmed. The second thing is actually the fact that there are a lot of laws that are poorly written. And in some cases, we can actually take advantage of that. But in other cases, the other guys take advantage of it. Or the situation just presents itself to where things can not necessarily be abused, but there's no clear pathway. So there's a lot of confusion in the early days of the pandemic. And I don't know if anyone in the state of Tennessee had ever actually read the emergency powers of the governor. The governor's a really good guy in Tennessee. He's a friend of mine. But I don't know if anybody had ever read the emergency powers that the governor had, because if they had, they'd have realized there's no limit. Then in Knox County, we have what's called a Board of Health, and I can't get into weeds on this, but basically larger counties in the state of Tennessee have their own health departments, whereas everybody else falls under the governor. So it got really confusing because the governors issue executive orders that do not impact the counties with their own health department, and they can do their own thing, is what he's saying, which caused all sorts of confusion. No one knew who was in charge. The one thing everybody knew was in charge was it wasn't the Knox County mayor, so we didn't do anything I talked about. Well, then a little later we learned that we would look at the public health codes in the state of Tennessee, and it was absolutely terrifying because we realized that this Board of Health had no limitations on their powers. I mean, there were no limitations. You read the statute, it literally said they could do anything in the name of public health and safety, which is as broad as you can get. So I go and I talk to our county attorney, our law department, and I'm like, so they don't need a public health crisis to do what they're doing. No, they can do it anytime. They could, and their orders superseded county commission ordinances. The only thing they couldn't do is they couldn't do anything less stringent than what the state did, but they could go further than what the state did on anything. So, could they ban sugary drinks? Yep. On their own accord at any time? Yep. Could they say that gun violence is a public health crisis? Yep. Could they then regulate gun sales and transfers? Yep. Now they get the pantsuit off, well, actually the county would, so I would. But they could do all of these things. So eventually the county commission came to the realization that we would have, I don't sit on commission, that they would have to strip the health board of its powers. And eventually, there's some issues, whether it's the health board, the public health director. Finally, the mayor got to say something and some stuff started to change. But yeah, but then we move ahead to bureaucrats and politicians feel the need that they have to do something, no matter what. I sit on this board of health. I'm one of 9 members. Pretty much 8 of the rest of them are doctors, okay? So you see where this is going, right? And again, public health people are fine people, doctors are fine people. We have different perspectives. You know, they're gonna wanna lock you in your house. I'm gonna say if you lock people in their house, not only are you depriving them of their liberty, but also there are gonna be long-term consequences to the economy and some other stuff too. We can't do that. Because my job is, as mayor, my job is to look after people's rights and freedoms, really. That's what it comes down to, okay? So we have a lot of these meetings where the votes are 8-1, okay? You know, they wanna restrict businesses. They wanna have curfews on businesses. They had a mask mandate. I'm the only no vote. The mask mandate went into effect on July 1st. It actually started working in February of this year. Went into effect on July 1st, 2020. Started working this past February when we finally started seeing the cases decline. Throughout that whole process, though, I can't tell you the number of times that you have the doctors saying, the public needs us, they expect us to do something. I met Deborah Burks. Y'all remember her? Yeah, so she came to Knoxville to speak at the University of Tennessee because she was doing a tour of all the big universities. And this was very enlightening to me. She recommended that we shut down all the bars. Get it. I wasn't going to shut down the bars, wasn't going to be my decision. And then someone said, so we're all sitting in this room, okay, at the University of Tennessee, a big conference room, about 20 people in a room which would normally seat 200 because we have to have social distancing, and we're all wearing masks. Most of the people in the room had PhDs or MDs, except for me, I only got a bachelor's degree, but nevertheless. Someone says to Dr. Burks, well, you know, the statistics show that COVID-19 really isn't passing around at bars. And she says, yeah, I know, but this sends a message to people that it's serious. So I'm sitting there in a room with people who have PhDs and MDs that are sitting 30 feet apart wearing masks. I'm like, I think everybody realizes this is pretty serious. Had to do something. And that's what's going on now. Again, have to do something. Doesn't matter whether it's effective or not. Just have to do something. These meetings were terrible. I had to sit through every Wednesday night. Because I'm the one person coming at it from a political view and also from a libertarian stance. Whereas you have the doctors who are pretty much acting like we're all hospital, that they're running a gigantic hospital and we're all patients. Okay. There was some funny stuff, though. In one meeting, we got through and there was really no blood on the floor, nothing controversial or horrible happened. We're about to break it up, and one of the doctors says, I've been getting emails from employees at a gentleman's clubs. So Glenn actually has like the humor of a 12-year-old. Okay, so you guys remember Beavis and Butthead? Yeah, that's me. So I'm sitting there going, oh my God, we're gonna talk about strip clubs. Then one of the other doctors leans into the microphone, and this is a Zoom call, and she says, how can we make them wear masks? And Glenn says, They don't wear clothes. I don't know how we're going to make them more mad. I actually had to shut my video camera off when that happened. But eventually that body was stripped of its power reverted back to me, at which point, as soon as I had the power to do so, I lifted the mask mandate. It was funny because the governor said they wanted all the... This was in late March. The governor said that he wanted all the big counties to lift their mask mandates by the end of May. A talk show host said, well, Mayor Jacobs must have thought he said the end of the day. So, but here's the thing about being in my position in Knox County. We're a county of about 450,000 people. We're the largest county in East Tennessee. We're the capital of East Tennessee. Because I was talking so much and pushing back so much, it kind of had a ripple effect into the rest of the region and some of the other counties, and almost throughout the state. We have some great mayors that I work with, and they saw the same things that I saw. I remember getting a call from one of them and said, man, this is in the early days. Glenn, I cannot believe all these people that are begging me to put restrictions on them and to take away their rights. Like, man, people died so that they could have those rights. Huh? I know. I remember another one of the mayors, and we're having a Zoom call, and he's sitting there chewing tobacco, and we're talking about what the governor's going to do, and someone says, we don't know what the governor's going to do, but he is the governor, and he says, well, I don't care who he is, he's still going to follow the Constitution. I was like, yes, those are my people. But because I stood strong, it helped them stand strong, and vice versa. One of the mayors told me that because of the stances that I took, it allowed them to take the stances that they took. And none of them implemented mask mandates. None of them. Then I was recently talking with a district attorney general in a county about 100 miles south of us. And he told me, there was another mayor in Middle Tennessee that pushed back pretty hard against all this stuff too. And he said, because of him and me and what we were saying, he made the decision that he would not prosecute anyone that was violating the health orders. And this was all the way down 100 miles south. Now that it looks like we might be going back the same way, I put out a tweet with the restrictions and everything. I put out a tweet the other day and I said, under no circumstances will I issue any new COVID-19 restrictions. I think it was the Libertarian Party of Connecticut responded, retweeted that and said, thank you guys. You know, but they said, if this was any year except 2021, this wouldn't be heroic, but it is heroic. But it's not heroic. It's my job. When I became mayor, I put my hand on the Bible. And I said in front of my community, my family, and I promised to God that I would defend, support, and protect the Charter of Knox County, the Constitution of the State of Tennessee, and the Constitution of the United States of America. That's my job. So when I hear people like Governor Murphy up in New Jersey get on Tucker Carlson and say, in response to the COVID restrictions, the Bill of Rights is above our pay grade, that is your job, and if you can't do that, you shouldn't be in office because you're not qualified. But because I did what I did, there are 1.2 million people in the Knoxville MSA. Because they had people like me and the other mayors who were principled, who were willing to stand on principle. We never did a lot of the stuff the rest of the country did. They still have a great degree of freedom compared to other places. The reason that the Knox County mayor was able to do that, the reason that I was in that position was you. In my campaign, as was stated before, I won by 23 votes in a county of 450,000 people. In 2018, my campaign hired 7 volunteers, students from Young Americans for Liberty to come in and knock on doors. They knocked on 55,000 doors. There's 187,000 households. 187,000 households in Knox County. They knocked on 55,000 of them. I won by 23 votes. Do the math. It was because of you that I was able to do those things. Thank you for that. But you guys have a much bigger task in front of you. It's not just America that we're talking about. You know, it's really the world. The world looks to America as the bastion of freedom and liberty. We must stop what's going on. And the way you're going to stop it is at the state level, is at the local level. That's why Operation Win at the Door is so important. That's why I believe that this is the most important organization in the liberty movement, because you are focused on taking back the state houses, and that's where the fight is going to be. You proved with me what can happen. We've done it with other people too. What can happen when you get principled individuals who are willing to toe the line in office? We need more of it. That's your job. The world, literally, Western civilization, depends on you all continuing to do that job. But you can do it. I love you all. I thank you all. I appreciate you all. Now let's get out there and do that job. Thank you.